Well, good morning to all of you. I hope you're doing all right. It's right around freezing over here. I woke up not too long ago. And of course, first thing I want to do this morning is sit down and play some NHL 96. So that's what we're going to check out here on the Sega Genesis. We'll go ahead and get this switched on over here and just sort of hop right into it. Now, the reason why I want to do this is because I need to do a little bit of, let me go ahead and set all this up. I'm going to do a video, I think, later on today that's going to sort of go over this game and the differences between, this game and NHL 94, NHL 95. I was doing a little bit of research on this little bit earlier, or I'm sorry, last night, trying to figure a couple of things out. There we go. We'll just do something like this. We'll go grab Quebec and we'll see what we can do with them. And so my understanding is that the engine for NHL 94, 95, 96 is completely different, which makes me kind of curious to know kind of what these games play like and how different they are. And I can tell you right away as I play this that this game doesn't have quite the same like super speed thing that you notice in NHL 95. So things are a little bit different. There's a little bit of a different feel to it. You can tell right away. And so, we'll go ahead and play with this and see what we wind up coming up with and give it a chance. So this isn't necessarily going to be the channel devoted only to EA Sports versions of NHL. A bunch of other games I think that we'll go ahead and try. We gave up a penalty shot pretty quickly there, didn't we? They didn't even call a penalty, though. They just gave the penalty shot. Okay, we can deal with that. I do still think that the defensemen are a little bit too fast. It's just a weird feeling to have a defenseman like race down the ice like that, right? I can have anybody I want take the puck up. It doesn't really matter. It's interesting because I've read where some people have been very, very critical of the graphics of NHL 95. I'm not sure that it's necessarily worse than a game like this. So I don't know. Maybe we'll keep an eye on that and see what we can figure out and see what people think about it. I do, though, want to definitely sort of play this game here today for the sake of comparison, for the sake of looking at stuff. And then I'm going to do a little bit of research into the old... man, we've given up 2 penalty shots here in the first period. This is getting a little bit ridiculous already. And, I mean, we just started. I do have some questions. I don't know if there's anybody out there who worked for EA Sports back in those days, but I do have some questions as to why it is that EA decided that it absolutely had to change that game engine away from what it was in NHL 94. I'm not certain that I fully understand like what was broken and why they needed to make this change. It's a little bit odd and doesn't really make a whole ton of sense to me. I'm not sure where I am here. I'm not sure how I wound up over there. Alright, so we're kind of struggling here. That's alright. I will tell you this, though. I do think that this is a better game than the 3D versions that we've been playing lately. Now, I don't think that NHL 99 on the N64 is necessarily an awful game. I think there was somebody, I don't remember if it was on this channel or on the football channel, who was saying that the N64 is one of the worst systems out there for sports games. I don't know if that's 100% true. I didn't think that NHL 99 was necessarily like an awful game or something that, is a laughing stock or something like that. I don't think that that's entirely the case. I do think though that that this game plays a lot better, especially than the NHL 97 over on the PlayStation. That one I think is pretty problematic in terms of just overall play control. And also in terms of like realism and feeling like a hockey game and stuff. I mean, the game yesterday too was a little bit ridiculous. I do think that maybe the difficulty setting was a little bit too easy or something like that. But here we're playing on rookie setting, you know, and I mean, you know, it's not like we're not turning around scoring, you know, one-timers like left and right like we were yesterday. Yesterday was way too easy. Maybe the team was, you know, overpowered or something. I guess you could make that argument, you know, but even still, I don't know. It was kind of eye-opening, I think. Here we go. Anyway, so we're going to try this out, and I tell you, there's a lot of other things I've thought about doing on this channel, especially when I first made it. In addition to just playing, you know, these types of video games, there are a bunch of hockey simulations out there as well. Simulation games might be worth checking out that I actually own. So at some point in time in the future, we'll probably actually, you know, give some of these a try. There are a lot of games. I own a lot of copies of games that I've never really, you know, spent a whole ton of time playing, which is kind of what I'm talking about here. So, for example, Franchise Hockey Manager, I have actually 2 different versions of it. It's one of those things where I buy it and I think, yeah, you know, this is the time I'm going to really get into this. I'm going to play it a lot, and then I end up not playing it. So we'll grab onto that and see what we can do eventually here once things go forward a little bit. Interesting, so they put in grappling here when you're fighting. I feel like they changed the fighting controls a little bit too. And the door noises and stuff, that's actually pretty cool. I think that's pretty interesting. So, are we doing 4-on-4 there for like 5 minutes? It's not necessarily what I was expecting, because in the other games, if you have somebody get caught for fighting, it goes back to 5-on-5, right? So this, by the way, this is the first game that brought back fighting after it went away. I want to see if I can find any sort of like information about that, why they brought it back and all that stuff, because I know that the NHL was not exactly thrilled with the prospect of having fighting in its, you know, flagship game. Of course, part of the problem, I think, honestly, is that the fighting system in the original NHL hockey was maybe a little bit too active. A lot of people online have been saying that, you know, and it does feel like you're getting in fights like, you know, every time you turn around in that game. I have a tendency to injure guys like that, so anyway, 2-minute minor. All right, we'll take it. Yeah, so that was 4-on-3. All right. Oh, missed him. Crap, that's not good. There's only 3 of us. I can't go take those kind of chances, huh? There are a couple of other more modern games that I own on Steam that I just haven't played yet. I've been meaning to play around with here on this channel. So as always, there's a whole bunch of stuff coming up in the future. If you don't like what you're seeing now, just wait. I'll give you a whole bunch of other stuff that you might not like. But, you know, people have been telling me, man, we gave up another penalty shot? Jeez. People have been telling me over and over again, oh, you should play Super Blood Hockey. Well, I have Super Blood Hockey. I just haven't tried it yet. I also have Tape to Tape, which I know is another well-loved game. That's one that a lot of people on Reddit especially were praising. So I do want to go and play through some of those as well eventually, and maybe start some sort of project or something like that. But, you know, one thing at a time. Kind of surprised at the number and variety of good hockey games that are out there, too. Interesting to me that, you know, the N64 and stuff didn't have more of these hockey games. It's also interesting that the trend in video games and sports games in general over time has been, you know, away from sort of coming up with like creative ways to present the game, and instead more towards making sure that you have like real life players and realism and all that stuff. When you go back in time, I mean, it's good to have real teams, real players, and the like, but that's not always necessarily the thing that makes a game, you know, a lot of fun and really enjoyable. I mean, you know as well as I do that, like, you know, ice hockey on the NES didn't have real players. Similarly, Blades of Steel didn't have real players, you know, and those games fared just fine, right? It's not like people who play these games don't necessarily think, you know, man, if we don't have real players in this game, what's the point and all that stuff. That's not really the way that it is. You know, you can come up with like a good game. People are likely going to play it regardless of whether you have some sort of like fancy license or not. What happens often with companies like EA is they get kind of, you know, stuck in a rut. Man, another penalty shot? You gotta be freaking kidding me, man. What was that? So, you know, I think the reason why we're giving up so many of these penalty shots is because, as was the case with NHL 95, this game is like, there we go. This game is like breakaway central, right? It's like the whole focus here is, you know, let's give you as many breakaways as you possibly can. Again, as you remember when we were playing the 3D versions of like Blades of Steel, it was kind of fun because there was a lot more happening in center ice instead of just one breakaway after the other, you know. You kind of wonder here why there's even a neutral zone if you're not going to use it, you know. Anyway, if I start struggling here in the game, the reason why is because I literally have the sun in my eyes right now. Oh, look at that. Sackage. Nobody there. Now, of course, one thing I'll say about this video that I'm planning on making today comparing some of these games is that it's not going to be the fairest comparison in the world, because I'm going to do this based on, you know, mostly on what people have said and on, you know, playing through these games like, you know, just a couple of times myself. What would be a lot more fair is if, boy, that was impressive, huh? What would be, I think, a lot more fair is if I went and did like an actual season with each game. Of course, it's kind of hard to do that with NHL 94 since it doesn't really have a season mode. We could do something like maybe a playoff run or something like that with each game. I don't know, something like that to get a better feel for it. Realistically, though, it's probably only fair to do something like that with these games so that, you know, we can have sort of like a fair comparison. It might be interesting to, you know, play a whole bunch with these games over time and then look back and see, you know, how things compare after a little while. I don't know. Now, the thing I'll tell you is that if I had never played NHL 94 or NHL 95, if this were the first NHL game that I ever played, I would be absolutely in love with it. All right. That's the thing about it. I mean, these games are not bad, and I think that people who get in this debate over, you know, which one was better than which kind of forget that, right? Like, it's not that these games are bad. The question is just, you know, is this one game better than the other, right? And, you know, Is it good to have this amount of speed and so on and so forth? Yeah, so I say, maybe I'm not that bad at this game, huh? All right, here we go. Here we go. Come on. Oh, just missed it. Now, the other thing, one thing I like about this is that they brought back that sort of, you know, ice skating feeling in the control with like the directional pad. That's one of the nice things about this. You do have to actually turn your player around and stuff like that. So when I was playing yesterday, when I was playing the N64 game, I felt like that wasn't really there so much. It's kind of weird to say, you know, it feels like it's too easy to turn around, but it did, right? It felt like it doesn't feel quite right, you know. Oh man, oh man. It's gonna be an interference call, I think. Yeah. See, I know how these games work. I'm getting there. Well, that didn't take long. Gee, what happened? Where's Brett Hull? I want to knock him flat. All right, let's do this. All right, here we go. Here we go. Here we go. Well, it's not going to matter. This will make it look close on paper, I guess, but this isn't going to matter in the end. They've already taken out their goalie in a desperate attempt to get another goal, so as long as we're careful about this, we should be able to score again. Or we'll just win. Adam Creighton ends up being the #1 star of the game. How about that for a losing cause? So we'll go ahead here, we'll check out the stats and see what's going on. So we only had 25 shots in that game. We gave up 45, but we had a 16% shooting percentage. Not bad. We didn't have a single power play in the game. No breakaways. They had 8 breakaways, which is crazy. But we did have 14 one-timers and scored 2 of them. We won a few more face-offs. We definitely were hitting harder, probably because they had the game on rookie setting. And as is usually the case when I play this, my passing percentage wasn't exactly all that great. So anyway, there you have it. That's a little bit of exhibition NHL 96 that gives us an idea of what the game was like. And as you can see, the sun is right in my eyes, so that's sort of the end of that. But I'll talk with you again tomorrow, and we'll take it from there. Bye-bye.